It's perfect, and we're going to go live soon in a few seconds.
Okay.
We're going live.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. This is Sarah Kern. I'm the guidance chairperson at Suffern High School, and welcome to our first ever live streamed event. First and foremost, I'd like to thank our technology director, Eric Coronado, who is helping out tremendously behind the scenes, Jenny Mermelstein, who's in charge of public relations for the district, for helping us get this all set up. And our master of ceremonies behind the camera is Mrs. Casarella, who will be monitoring the chat today, and I'm sure chiming in if I forget anything or miss any key points. So that is our team here behind the scenes. I have to tell you, this is an interesting moment for Suffern Guidance. We are much more comfortable being live and in person in the auditorium, where the rest of the counselors would be milling about right now, welcoming our senior families and just making everyone feel very at home and at ease. Some parts of me actually wish I invited a few of you here and, did this live in front of a studio audience, so to speak. So at least we can have a little bit of interaction, but I digress. You're here tonight to talk about college, and it is a topic we get excited about here at Suffern Guidance. So we are going to jump right in. I hope your sons and daughters have already mentioned to you that we had a senior assembly last week. It was a virtual senior assembly, and we were so excited. Our kids really showed up. I know I can say I had 100% attendance amongst my seniors, and each of the counselors were pulling about 90% in their caseloads, which are a bit larger than mine. And what students learned in that assembly? Well, they learned how to complete their college applications. They learned how to request transcripts. They learned how to request letters of recommendation. We talked about SATs and ACTs and the meaning of those scores, and then how to send them if you, in fact, do need them for a college application. We talked about matching their Naviance account to their Common App and went over all of the different websites they will need in order to have a complete college application. Now, some of them might have mentioned to you that part of this assembly was a video. It's about 19 minutes long, and it really is a very informative how-to where we use screen captures to actually show the students the different websites, how to access them, and how to complete forms. We're not going to show that to parents tonight. We thought it might be a little bit overkill. However, if you do feel like you need to see that video, it is posted in each of the counselors' Google Classrooms. So you can sit down with your seniors and have them log in, and you will be able to access that video. So you might say to yourself, if we're not doing all this how-to stuff, Mrs. Kern, why am I live streaming this event? Why am I watching? Well, we are going to try to impart some practical advice to you. We're going to talk about how it is you go about creating a list of schools, especially in these unprecedented times. And we really would like parents to understand the college application process and all of the different ways and aspects there are to apply. Our main goal for tonight is for you to feel like you have all of the information at your fingertips. Because as parents, if you have that information, you'll be able to dial down any anxiety you might feel in your house and actually be a partner with your son or daughter as they go through this process. So normally, if we were in the auditorium right now, I would take a deep breath and I would ask all of you to do it as well. And we would all maybe even repeat the words together, we are all okay. And that's because it's very early in the year. It's what, September 23rd, very early in the year. There is not a student at Suffern High School at this moment that has a completed application. You absolutely should not feel that you are lost or too late, not at all. This process is different for every single student. We have a small group of students that, let's face it, it will be very easy for them. Recruited athletes, pretty much know where they're going to college. They don't have to stress over the uncertainty of applying to school, and they only have to apply to one school. It is easier. It is a fact. But for the vast majority of students, everyone is in a different place. Some students have a list of schools and 3 top contenders that they know they want to apply to. They're crossing their fingers, they are admitted, and maybe they even feel a little nervous about having to make that decision in the spring. We have other students who are completely at a loss, who say to themselves, I have no idea where I want to go. I don't know what I want to study, and I don't know what I'm looking for in a school. That is normal to have students like that in a senior class. We want you to know that we will walk all students through this process, the ones with the most defined goals, all the way to the ones who really feel very undecided. Every year we work with all kinds of students, so we feel very comfortable that all of them are in our caseload. I also want to remind everyone, this phrase, college admissions is unpredictable. I've had that phrase on this slide in some way, shape, or form for 5 or 6 years. But now more than ever, college is unpredictable. So we're going to stay on that topic for a moment. Let's admit what's gone on. We've had a global pandemic in the past few months. Counselors have not had the same daily, day-to-day contact with their students as we might have had in years past. Students may not have had the same opportunities to sit for standardized tests. The number of face-to-face contacts between a student and a college representative or between a student and a college campus has declined because of stay-at-home orders, quarantines, and just the lack of travel in the world right now. Those are all facts that the class of 2021 have to deal with. And that probably makes college admissions feel even more unpredictable. But if you read articles that we've seen in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and different professional organizations for high school counselors, in the research or in that kind of intellectual database, the thought is the unpredictability of college admissions will actually help our students. Because some students have not had the ability to sit for SAT or ACT exams, many colleges are going test optional. That means even if you sat for a test and maybe you don't like your score, but you didn't have the opportunity to prep and take it a second or a third time, you don't have to submit those scores. What a wonderful thing. What a wonderful, huge weight that has been taken off our students' shoulders. That is something that kids should not worry about right now. And quite frankly, there is a tremendous number of students that outperform themselves, shall we say. They are great students. They come to school every day, do all of their work, study for tests. They are prepared in every way. And maybe on that Saturday morning where they sit for an SAT or an ACT, the result just isn't what they would like. Well, now we've just waved our magic wand and it's gone. Now colleges will have to make decisions about students based upon their transcript, the courses they took in high school, and the grades that they earned. It is a wonderful thing. I also want to talk about that diminished number of interactions between high school seniors and either college representatives or college campuses. Because at first glance, you think my student is at a disadvantage. Maybe my older child who's currently a junior in college, maybe he went to visit 10 different schools and got to see a very authentic college experience at each of those 10 schools. But maybe your daughter who's in the class of 2021 doesn't have that opportunity right now. You might feel she's at a loss, but I want you to flip the coin and look at the other side. College admissions counselors exist to recruit students. It's their job to sell their schools. It's their job to go to high schools and get more students excited about it and hopefully have those students apply. College visits, college information days, all of those huge events on college campuses, they are useful for students. They do show students what the college experience is like. They do allow students to learn about what different schools have to offer, but they also boost the number of students sending in applications, which means the competition is high. Right now, students have not had that ability to maybe go see 10, 20 schools. And so maybe their list will be a little bit smaller. And if that's the case across the country, competition will be a little bit less. So our job at Suffern High School and your job as parents is to make sure we can fill that gap and make sure our students get the information they need to create an appropriate list of schools, and hopefully they can beat the odds. So you say to yourself, we have this unpredictability. It's always been that way. Are they going to get in? Are they not going to get in? Now we add the added kind of stressor of COVID-19. Sometimes families feel at a loss. Well, we're here to tell you to focus on what you can control. And that's where we're going to move right now. What can you control? You will control. And when I say you, I mean you as a family, right? It's not just our seniors. They don't live in a bubble. There are strong adults behind them. And actually, I forgot to say one statement. I'm sorry, housekeeping rule. We do have Miss Casarella behind the scenes working the chat. She is making lists of the questions that you are asking while this presentation is going on. And then at the end, she and I will have a little healthy banter between the two of us where she asks questions and then I will pose the answers to all of you. So if you do have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. Okay, back to the presentation. So what to do now? How do I make a list? So this requires some conversations with your child, right? We have to start thinking about things. And every student who says, woe is me, I know nothing, I have no idea where I want to go to school, that's actually not true. They know something. They have a preference for weather. Do they want to be someplace warm or do they love the snow? They have a preference for geography, right? Do I thrive in the middle of New York City? Do you have a Metro card and like ride the subways all over town on a nice Sunday afternoon? Or do you hate that? And would you much rather drive an hour upstate New York and go apple picking where it is rural and there's nature and you feel very at home in that environment? Most kids are able to choose one or the other over the other. These are two facts. Right? If you have a son or daughter who loves to be with nature where it's rural and who never goes into New York City, not at the holidays, not for a hockey game, not for a Broadway show, well, you know something. This kid is not going to be happy at NYU. If they're not happy at NYU, they might not be happy at Boston University or at Emerson or Emory or George Washington, all those schools right in the heart of major metropolitan areas. Cross those schools off your list, right? Or look at what your child is interested in. Any kid right now who says, I don't know what I want to study, but if I ask that student, what subject do you hate the most? They will have an answer. I know for me, if I transport myself back in time to when I was in high school, unequivocally, if you had asked me, Mrs. Kern, what subject do you hate the most? I'm sorry to all you scientists out there and doctors. I hated science. There is no way you would ever find me in any school that boasts that it has the greatest research labs in the country. It just didn't interest me, not then and not now. I'm sure that there are students out there who will say, oh, it's English. I don't want to read. I don't want to annotate. I don't want to talk about theme in a fictional story. This is not for me. Well, that student, when you are looking at colleges, if you're looking at a school, whether it's in person or online, and they're boasting the biggest library in the world and they're the biggest collection of poet laureates, this is not really the school that your son or daughter might feel comfortable in. So you want to zone in on those things that you do know and start making a list. Now, for those of you who aren't sure actually what to even write down, even if you come up with those lists of preferences, students can do a college search in Naviance That is a program they will use to communicate with their counselor and with their teachers about where they're applying and which teachers are writing them a letter of recommendation. It also has an extremely robust college search engine. The best part of this search engine is that it uses data based on the outcomes of past classes at Suffern High School. So if you looked at national data and you were wondering what is the GPA that you need to get into the University of Delaware, if you look on the College Board's website, it will list a GPA. But is that GPA really what you need to get into Delaware? If you're a student who's graduating from Suffern High School, no. You want to look at Naviance, where we have 10 years worth of applicants to the University of Delaware, where we can tell you the average accepted GPA for kids who are graduating from Suffern High School, who are applying to Delaware, is this number. The number is true to Suffern. So anyone right now who feels like they need a little help and they need a search engine, I implore you to please use Naviance. It will give you the most real information. Beyond that, the counselors are here in the guidance department. We're ready for your kids. So please have them either set up a Google Meet with their counselor, or you can call the counselor if you want to have just an adult to an adult conversation about college admissions. We are here and we are your sounding board. My next picture, it does make me a little sad because there is something exciting and there's something that you can't recreate online, that feeling of going on a college campus and knowing this is the one. We can only cross our fingers, hope and pray that our students will have an abundance of those opportunities at their fingertips in the spring. Right now, they do exist. If you have a school you're interested in seeing, you might want to check on their website. There are some events going on campus. Many times nowadays, you have to sign up in advance. They are looking at social distancing. Obviously, they don't want to keep a tour with a huge crowd. So make sure you do your research and really check those college campuses and the college websites. Unfortunately, we are not bringing in college representatives to Suffern High School to speak to students, nor are colleges sending their representatives to different high schools for obvious reasons. So this is one area where you really do have to dig a little deeper, do some more research, and find those opportunities. We are here to help. If ever a student or a parent feels like they don't even know where to look on the college website to see if they're running any events, call us. I promise you that we'll be able to navigate that. We also need to acquaint ourselves with some vocabulary. Before I go to the next slide, which has a lot of words on it, I do want to say this slide presentation will be posted on the high school website tomorrow. So don't feel like you have to get a pen and paper and start taking notes. You don't need your camera and screenshot whatever device you're watching on. So let's have this conversation and just know that you'll be able to see it in black and white tomorrow, I promise. We are going to tell our kids, let's get these applications in. Counselors are never going to throw around the term early. You ever go to a friend's house for dinner when we were allowed to go to friends' houses for dinner and everyone's talking and you'd hear someone say, oh, she's going to apply early to Binghamton, or oh, he's applying early to UVA. What does early mean? Does early just mean I'm applying tomorrow, way before the deadline? No. In terms of college admissions, the word early is very, very important. So it's a little bit blurry, but you can see what I'm talking about. In terms of college applications, we call it a plan. There's restrictive plans and non-restrictive plans. Each college chooses one of these options or one or more of these options to put out there to their applicants in terms of how they submit their application. I'm going to start all the way to my left. So non-restrictive application plans, regular decision. That means a college has a deadline. It's usually later on in the year, and everybody needs to apply before that deadline. The college will send out the decision sometime around March, and the student has to decide by May 1st if they'd like to attend. Rolling admissions is a little bit different. For rolling admissions, it means you apply when you're ready, and we're going to take about 2 weeks. Once your application is complete, we will process it, make a decision, and send it back to you. Usually there is a end date to rolling admissions, but the whole point is colleges are receiving and making decisions on an ongoing basis. We're going to stop for a minute because when we spoke about rolling admissions, I never used the word early, did I? But I'm going to tell you, practically speaking, we do not want to wait on schools that have rolling admissions. Because if you apply to Penn State on October 20th, it is easier to get in than if you apply on January 20th. By January 20th, all of their spots might be taken for whatever program it is that you would like to attend. So when we have a rolling admissions school, we are going to tell our students to apply in a timely manner. Not going to use the word early, but still in a timely manner. You're going to do that application. You're going to do it early in the fall. Oh, I used it. You're going to do the application. You will get it done well before Thanksgiving, and hopefully you will have an answer before the holiday break. Our favorite plan in the high school guidance office is early action. When my daughter is a senior in a few years, she will be applying early action to lots of places. Early action means the school is giving you a deadline. It's early in the school year, usually about October 15th to November 15th. The student submits their application by that date. The school makes a promise to give you that decision at an early date, usually before winter break, sometimes just after winter break, but you are not committed. You can get 10 schools to give you that decision around that time, and you still have until May 1st to decide. Wonderful plan, early action. If a school offers it, you should do it. Now, the restrictive plans, this is where things get a little sticky. Under restrictive early action, what it says is you can apply to our school using our early deadline. We will promise you that we will give you an answer earlier than maybe other kids, usually right before winter break or just after. You don't have to come here. You can still apply to tons of other schools regular, and you still can make your decision by May 1st, but you cannot apply using a early non-restrictive plan anywhere else. So the restrictive early action still gives you the flexibility to get some answers from other colleges. It just doesn't allow you to get those answers early. Again, using that word so much. My goodness, I'm sorry. Early decision. It is the most restrictive plan. This is when you have a clear-cut first choice school. You know your son or daughter would be thrilled to go there. Nothing else compares, nothing at all. Well, in this plan, you will apply using their early decision plan. It will be an early deadline, usually between October 15th and November 15th. You will hear early, right around Christmas break, either before or after, but it is binding. If you find out that you get in, you have now entered a legal binding contract with that school, and you will be expected to pull your applications from any other school that you applied to, even without hearing from them. So notice, of all the different application plans, early decision is the one you're tied to, right? You will not have any choices in March or April. You can't compare, you can't contrast, you're going. Notice, financial aid does not come out that early. So under the early decision plan, you are telling them you will be attending that school even if you are not pleased with the financial aid package they are offering you. Early decision. You need to be very sure before signing on to that plan. So we talked about a lot of terms. We talked about making a list. We talked about how we can make some decisions about what schools are appropriate to apply to that might match our students' goals. Now there's paperwork. So I'm sure at this point I would ask for a raise of hands. How many families in the house, this is their first child going to college? And usually it is the majority of the crowd. So I'm going to go under the assumption that that is also true tonight. When we talk about paperwork or applying or applications, please understand that schools, they really make it confusing for students. Oftentimes they will use lots of different applications. So for instance, if you are applying to SUNY Binghamton is a state university of New York. You can use what's called the SUNY app. The SUNY app is one application that can be sent to multiple schools within the state university system. But just to confuse things, you can also apply to Binghamton using the Common application. The Common application is one application that can be used for hundreds of different schools across the country. So there are some others. The CUNY application, which refers to the City University of New York system of schools. There is an application called the Coalition application. Many people will say it's kind of like the Common App in that it crosses all state boundaries. So there's a certain number of schools that are on the Coalition application, but it is very different when you go to fill it out. It looks different than the Common App. And then there is the Old Faithful school application. If you are applying to Georgetown, unless things have changed this year, I have not processed a Georgetown application just yet. So I'm asking for your forgiveness if this is not the most up-to-date information, but for eons and eons and years, Georgetown, you must use the Georgetown application to apply. So when kids are speaking with you about applying, one of the things that we really need to keep straight is what application they are using for each school. Luckily, when their list of schools is in Naviance, Naviance does a great job of letting students know what schools accept the Common App, what schools accept the Coalition, what schools use their own school application. So that information is at your fingertips, but it's important to keep straight. So I've talked about Naviance, right? Naviance is where we have our college search engine. It's where kids will put in the schools that they're applying to. But some of you might think back to the first topic I talked about, which was the senior assembly. And if you've had an older kid, you might say to yourself, where's the folder, right? We are pretty famous at Suffern High School for giving kids a folder of information that contains a packet that is specific to them. It has their name on it and it's theirs. That is their college folder. Unfortunately, we've had to digitize everything. So for those of you who really feel like you need to know where every single thing is, we don't want to make you feel nervous or anxious. Please know the student's transcript is on the eSchool Data Parent Portal. Now, before I move on, I do want to speak about transcripts for a moment. The transcript that's currently on the parent portal is not an official transcript. We gave students up until I believe it was Monday of this week to look at their transcript to just check it for accuracy. Now, Mrs. Casarella could attest if she was here or you could see her, she would shake her head. It is very rare that we find an error on a senior transcript, but in some cases it does happen. You want to be able to look at your child's transcript just to make sure everything looks perfect. And when I say perfect, I don't mean straight A's, even though I'd love for that to be the case. You just want to make sure everything is there, that if they took a class pass fail, the P is there and not a letter grade. If your child was a transfer student from another school, just make sure their classes from 9th grade from North Rockland appear as you would expect them to. Just be another set of eyes for your student's cumulative record. The second reason we need families to go over this is we cannot solidify rank and GPA until this is done. Because if we have 40 kids who have issues, and please, never do I want to have 40 kids with issues, that is going to impact their GPA and where they fall in the class. So we are at a little bit of a standstill. We want to make sure families have the opportunity to check out the transcript. So although we told the students that they had until Monday to check their transcripts, I have no problem giving you guys another day. So please take a look, go on the eSchool Data Parent Portal, look at the transcript, make sure it's okay. If you have a question, email your son or daughter's counselor. And in my mind, I know that by tomorrow, end of day, everyone will have the opportunity to have seen their child's transcript and we can move forward with rank and GPA on Friday. I can tell you so far, we have not found any major errors at all. maybe there was a U.S. History Regents exam was not listed. So if you find that error, you don't even have to call the counselor. We're fixing it. Once rank and GPA is settled, we will upload new perfect transcripts to the parent portal. So it will be there for you to use in any way, shape, or form going through this process. Students will have to fill out or complete a personal profile in Naviance. Again, that's in their Naviance account. We do ask for an academic release of records. So for those of you out there who maybe are at a standstill with your son or daughter, maybe they don't like talking to you about college, please understand we are not sending out their records until you sign a release that says we can do so. So that 100% can be your in. That can be your conversation starter if you haven't had these college talks just yet. Johnny, don't I have to sign the academic release of records? And there you go. You have your window of opportunity to talk about all of this stuff. And then hopefully you'll sign off on their records release and they will submit that to their counselor via the Google Classroom. So kids are going to do all of this good work on the Common App, in Naviance. They're going to write beautiful essays that their English teacher goes over with them or their counselor reads with them to make sure it really captures who they are as human beings. But then you say to yourself, once they hand in their application and they click submit, are they done? And the answer is no. They need to complete a Suffern High School transcript request form. This is their way to tell their counselor, Mrs. Kern, I've applied to these 7 schools. Please send my records. So that is available in the student's Google Classroom, the counselor's Google Classroom rather. Letters of recommendation. They're a part of this process. In fact, I would say now that the SAT scores are gone and ACT scores are gone, colleges will have a little bit more time on their hands to really read through those teacher letters. Kids will request their teacher letters through Naviance. And while we're talking about teacher letters of recommendation, let's take a moment and think about who makes a good letter. Well, really the question should be, what are colleges looking for in the letter of recommendation from a teacher? In that space, they are looking for an adult who can assess how your child exists intellectually and academically. Do they raise their hand? Are they curious? Is their work well revised? Just thinking about things I hear teachers talk about. Do they thrive in group work? Are they a natural leader? Or sometimes it's that great note taker in group work that really stands out to students. Is this a student who, when you give them an independent assignment, they just take off? Who is your kid as a student? That is what colleges want to see from the teacher letter of recommendation. So when kids are looking to pick who to ask, we're going to tell them to stick to their academic core teachers for their letter of recommendation, because those are the teachers that have had those experiences with students. As counselors, it's easy for us to talk about all of those other things, right? It's like there's this intellectual piece to students, and then, excuse me for the visual of my hand in the screen, there's all of the things around it. That's our job. We have that covered. You don't even have to ask us to write a letter. We write for all of our students. So we are going to tell students you want to keep to the 5 academic core for the letter of recommendation from a teacher. Excuse me. We also have what's called an exact rank release form. It is kind of funny. Some students have tried to hand this in already. However, they don't even know their rank. So I would say, let's make sure we know where we fall in the class before we make this decision. Exact rank, it really is for kids who are really proud of the fact of, exactly where they fall in the class. And they want colleges to know that exact number. So we just ask for you and for your son or daughter to sign that form and give it to us. And we will make sure that we report out an exact rank for students. This is Mrs. Leali's favorite slide. So I'm going to stop here for 1 second and just tell you, everyone's living in step 1 right now. We've talked a lot. We've given you a lot of information tonight. I do hope that I've hit upon the frequently asked questions that you might have, but Ms. Casarella, I'm sure will be sending me questions any moment. Right now, we're living in step 1. So kids are doing things like reviewing the transcript. they're completing what's called the personal profile in Naviance. That is just a questionnaire, a means of communication between the student and the counselor about the college process, and maybe, even a little bit of looking back over the high school experience to see what stands out for kids. We're going to ask students to read the materials that are posted in our Google Classroom. So in our Google Classroom, there's a classwork section with materials, all different information about college admissions. This slide, step 1, step 2, step 3 is there. The information on non-restrictive plans and restrictive plans is there. There is also what's called a FAQ, a frequently asked questions. And I highlight this because some of you might have to help and hold your child's hand a little bit through this process. And maybe you're not so tech savvy, or maybe your child is super tech savvy and super independent, and they're like, Mom, Dad, you don't even know what you're talking about. Well, I want to let you know that we have a frequently asked questions that sheet that lists every single thing you will have to do with the college admissions process and exactly how to do it. So we're talking, it goes down to the basics of, let's type in www.commonapp.org and create an account, and then those steps. It will be, how do I log into Naviance? It will be, how do I ask the teacher for a letter of recommendation? And it will say, you click on this tab, then scroll down and click on this button, then choose your teacher, and so on and so forth. We really like to give our kids step-by-step guides, because some students can sit down on a website and it's very intuitive and comes really easy. Other students, not so much. So we have this little guide on the side, just in case you need a little bit of a helping hand. Before we can ever move on to steps 2 and 3, we need for you to print, sign, and submit the SHS academic records release, and that gets sent to the counselor via the Google Classroom. That's where we are in step 1. If your child has completed all of those things, move on to step 2, and you'll notice what's the first thing listed? Set up a meeting with your counselor, and then we can move on through this process. So I've spoken a lot. We're going to break now for questions. I think for Mrs. Casarella, to make this work properly, you're going to go over to your Google Meet side of your screen and unmute your mic, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Well, Mrs. Kern, I think you were so thorough in your presentation that we really don't have a lot of questions right now. So perhaps some questions will come in, but one question that is on here is, should our senior students commit to colleges now? And I'm not sure if this person is asking about an athletic commitment or an academic commitment, but that's the question that has been posed.
Okay, so I think if it is an athletic commitment, that is going to be a really important family decision, because that takes into account 4 years of playing with a coach and with a team. So a little bit outside of the scope of what we're talking about here tonight, very, very specific to that one student and their situation. Maybe, Ms. Cass, what this question could be referring to is that early decision plan. One of the things that we are hearing about that you may notice as families is early candidates. Schools are kind of giving some added perks to kids to entice them to apply early decision. Things like a certain amount of money that will go towards study abroad, a voucher to the bookstore to purchase books, first dibs on dorms and housing. This is something that didn't happen in years past. If our families out there who are listening tonight, you might be aware that there was actually some discussion in the courts about college admissions and maybe the rules that were set upon colleges for what they can and can't do in terms of recruiting students. And the federal government actually sided with the colleges and said that they should have a little bit more freedom. So colleges are really trying to get kids to apply early decision. It definitely helps the school. If you think about it, in the past year, students, dare I say, in droves, were planning on going to a college, and due to whatever was going on with either in their own community or in the community where the school is, and that really does, it it messes with college's plans. So if they can get a student to apply early decision, they know one kid that, is most likely going to go to their college on their college campus in the fall of next year. So I think it is, again, it can work to your benefit if they are really, really trying to get you to go, but you need to make sure it is your child's number one choice. So that's going to require a little bit more research on your part. Let them see the other side. Let them see what the grass looks like on a different college campus, even if it's a drive-by. If you don't get out, let them see what's going on. Take every virtual tour you possibly can on different schools' websites. And if you're still listening and says, Mom and Dad, this is the one, and if you can work with the school to maybe get an early read for financial aid, or if finances are not an issue at all, kind of get your ducks in a row and then feel free to do it. But if at any point you have that doubt, that's where we're going to say you should probably take a step back for a minute, maybe not move a little bit too fast and apply early decision.
Okay.
If there's not that
Mrs. Kern, we're starting to get a lot more questions now.
Okay.
This is a good one. Some parents want to know if they can access the Google Classroom to get those documents without having to go through their students.
So this is one of those new wave technology questions that I have an I don't know to. However, I think you have to talk to your child. Ms. Casarella can attest to this as well. When we look at the rosters in our Google Classrooms, we see that some parents are in there. As staff members, we don't have the ability to invite you. It's like you need a Suffern Central email address, I believe, to get in there. But I think kids can add you. If you have any questions and you just want the documents, it's not a problem. So either sit down with your child and take a look, or just email your counselor. It's literally a few clicks away for us. Unfortunately, we just couldn't figure out a way to make it older for everybody. It wasn't feasible. So it's digitized and that's where it lives at the moment.
And I can even jump in to say that you can certainly always reach out to us as well. If there's a document that you're uncertain about, even if your child has started it or not started it, or you have questions about what they've handed in. Another question that we have in our chat is, how do we know where our child is in the process if they are a little bit more tight-lipped with us? And you can always give us a call. And we can share with you how far along they are in terms of documents and forms and meetings and with us. So we welcome conversations.
I do want to say, and this goes along exactly with what Mrs. Casarella was saying, is that the world has changed, and I think everyone's role has changed. And so for parents, you do have to do a little bit more in terms of doing some digging with your kid, or maybe pushing them towards getting some experiences either on a college campus or a virtual tour at home, just getting that information. Unfortunately, our role has changed. I mean, it's Ms. Casarella and I and the rest of the team, one of our favorite times of the year is when colleges come to campus and they're doing unit lunch. We love to do a sweep of campus and kind of pick some kids out and say, hey, Scranton is here. That's a great school for you. You need to go talk to them. I love those moments, and I'm not going to have them this year. I started this little answer by saying parents have more responsibilities. Well, we're here to support the parents. I mean, this is new for you too. So if you need some help, or you just need to be like, oh my goodness, I'm trying to have this conversation and they're not listening. Well, we're here. We'll listen and we can nudge and maneuver. That's what we're here for. We really need to be a team, and we're happy to do so here in the Guidance Office.
Another question we have is about financial aid. And I think this is a good time to mention a little bit of the financial aid process.
Sure. So the free application for student aid, the FAFSA form becomes live on October 1st. So that means beginning on October 1st, you can log into that website, create an account, and start filling out your financial aid information. You'll need things like tax returns and W-2s, and you can get that process started. I can tell you we are working with some of our partner colleges to have a financial aid night similar to what we're doing right now. We want to bring in a financial aid expert to either do a live stream or to provide us with a pre-recorded video that we could put out to parents, because you do have questions. How do I answer? Who needs to fill out these forms? It's a real specific, very different than college applications. So that is my long answer about financial aid. I can also tell you that Rockland Community College, all community colleges in New York State, are kind of charged with helping anyone and everyone in their community with financial aid. So even if you know 100% your child is not even applying to RCC, their financial aid office will help answer your questions. Throughout the course of the fall, we will be sending out information about our own, again, financial aid night event, but also the State University of New York also puts together financial aid days and different programs to help people with financial aid. The other website you should know about is the profile, and that is run through the College Board. The CSS profile, you do have to pay to submit the form, and it is used by, I want to say, maybe 100 schools in the country. We're talking about the most elite schools in the country, and it will ask more in-depth information on your financial situation, like offshore accounts and, if you happen to own a farm or, different kinds of financial trusts and annuities that are not represented in your tax returns or W-2s. So the CSS profile, again, if you are applying to those high-end elite private schools, you want to check it out to see if it's something you need to complete.
Okay. When should students start applying to college?
Tomorrow. Again, we don't like to use the word early. We want them to apply when they are ready. And so I think everyone should be looking at step one right now and checking off those tasks. It's never too early to start that. So when we say when should students be applying, we'd love for all of our kids to be finished before Thanksgiving. And I will tell you, over the years, kids have applied in the months of October and early November more and more each year. So it's not even something we are so concerned about as counselors, because I think it's been ingrained in them, and you will hear it in the media, you need to apply, and now's the time to apply. So we are ready and open for business.
Another question we have is if our student is taking their English class outside of Suffern High School, or if their English teacher perhaps isn't going over the essay right now, is there another way for their child to get assistance with that essay?
Sure. So I do believe Mr. Tully, who is the head of the English department, has put it out there that all senior English classes will be going over the college essay. But I do also understand that, teachers have to fit that into their curriculum. And if your child's ready and they wrote their essay last night, they don't want to wait a week and a half to have somebody read it. So counselors are here. We can also read through letters. We can also read through your kids' essays to help you just make sure you're hitting the right points. One thing that I will say, when you are attacking the essay, and it's great if your child is speaking with you about it, this can be the one area I think overall that they like to share with parents the least. But if they are sharing with you, that's great. We just want it to be about the kid. It needs to be about your child. This is the spot in the application where the college gets to see or learn something about your son or daughter that they cannot learn anywhere else. So if your child, let's say they're, a real average student, but they're phenomenal in math and they get A+ in every math class they ever took, don't write the essay about how great your kid is in math, because they can see that from the transcript. And most likely your child will ask the math teacher, right, for a letter, and the math teacher will talk about that. Instead, have your child talk about, what it's like to be a middle child in a family of 5, because that's interesting. And that's an experience that not everybody has. So you just want to make sure it's true and authentic to who your child is, and not a repetition of something else that's written somewhere else in an application.
This is a good question, Mrs. Kern. When hybrid starts, can we meet with our counselors face-to-face in their offices?
Students. Oh, this is a student asking a question. That's great. Yes. Mr. Breen went over all of the different rules now that we're starting hybrid tomorrow. That was one of our questions. You will notice that many of the counselors changed their furniture around to put some little barrier between themselves and their students. And we have been told that as long as the student has a mask on and the counselor has a mask on, that we can meet in our offices. So we are very, very excited about that. So yes, you can.
Now, many colleges are test optional, and we've already gone over that. But some are asking how late is too late to possibly take an SAT or ACT?
So I'm so sorry, I don't have the test dates up in front of me, so I don't want to throw out a test date that doesn't exist.
Mrs. Kern, if I could jump in to dive about that, I think that really comes down to what type of application the student is using.
I agree. I think it all depends on the type of application and when that drop dead deadline is for that student. Although I would say, tell me what you think, Ms. Casarella. Like I'm not thinking February 2021. That's definitely too late, I would think.
I agree. I would think that December for most students is probably the latest that seniors should consider taking an SAT or ACT.
Okay, I agree.
Someone is asking about essay topics. There are a variety of essay topics that students can use and choose from. And if students go on or families go on to the Common App, which is commonapp.org, their essay topics are available for people to review. Another question that we have is, can students make videos for applications?
Okay, so this is an interesting one because I think over the past few years, colleges have gotten creative about what students can create and send to be evaluated. If you look at the coalition application, oftentimes the coalition application has some more flexibility and leeway about that. I'm hesitant to say yes for all because the vast majority of schools are not going to be accepting videos. However, there will be some that will. So what you would want to do is if you have a school you know you're applying to, you go to their website and you look at application materials, and that's going to list for you what it is they will evaluate you on. And if there's a spot where you can upload some sort of movie, video, photographic collage, go for it. The one asterisk, of course, is if students are applying to a fine arts program, right? If you were going for a Bachelor of Fine Arts, maybe it's in performance, acting, singing, instrumental music, they're going to have very, very different guidelines and, requirements in terms of their applications. So those students most definitely will probably need videos. A student who's not applying to a Bachelor of Fine Arts program or any kind of creative arts or performing arts program, that's going to be few and far between. Okay, I think that we have covered all of the questions that have been posed so far. So I think, Mrs. Kern, like I stated earlier, you were so thorough in your presentation that we didn't have too many questions tonight. All right, so I'm going to thank Ms. Casarella. This is hysterical. We are on opposite sides of the brick wall in the guidance department. And thank you so much for helping. I couldn't have done tonight without you. And of course, Mr. Coronado in the background as well, running our live stream. Thank you to all the families out there who listened. Again, we will post the slides to the high school website tomorrow in case you need anything, and definitely visit your kids' Google Classroom and their Naviance accounts for more information. So I'm going to say thank you so much and good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.